Greetings, I'm Heather Lane Casera. I am the Clark County Poet Laureate, and I'm so happy to be here with you today to celebrate poetry and also to introduce you to two amazing poets. They're father and son poets. We have Simon Hunt, who is a local educator, and also his son, CJ Hunt. Thank you so much for joining us, Simon and CJ. I'm thrilled to have you. I'm really fascinated in the fact that you share this craft together. First, I'd like to know how you found poetry, each of you, or how it found you.
That's a hard question for me to answer because it's been part of my life my whole life. I don't really remember first loving poetry. My father is a journalist, and so I've been around words my whole life and take after him in loving words, I guess. And so I've always written poems. I got a lot more serious about it about 25 years ago, which coincidentally is the time that I was having my kids, my son here and his older sister. So I don't know if there's a connection there, but that's how it went.
Well, I sort of was stuck with poetry from birth because I was raised by him. So, as early as I can remember, he was writing poetry and I was reading some of it, and I was attending poetry events that I was, too young to understand. And I sort of wanted to imitate that because it was what I was raised around, and I wanted to grow into the family tradition of it, if you will. And so I was writing poems as early as like 5. Wow. And then I started actually understanding what I was doing and trying to do it properly at like 12. And it's just, you can't not write poetry when you're raised in a house that's full of poetry, and all the bookshelves have poetry on them, and you're going to the Robinson Jeffers thing every week. So I was raised in it, I guess.
His mother and I are both English teachers, so he and his sister, like he says, maybe had no choice.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love this story. It makes my heart so happy. So thank you for sharing that with us. And then I was wondering too, do you feel like how do you ever have any sort of like moments where you write together, or do you sort of share your poems, or do you have any sense of like friendly competition over poetry? Sort of, what is that relationship like?
I don't know about competition, but I definitely use his also being a poet as a resource.
Awesome.
He's often the first person to read what I write. He was, I think, the first person to read this. Because he's right there and he knows more about it than I do, so I'll just email it to him and be like, is this any good? I learned a lot of poetry and also a lot of my own opinions about poetry from him. So I use him as sort of a sounding board, and I take your input a lot, but I don't think there's competition.
No, I don't feel a sense of competition either. For one thing, he and his sister are both a lot better than I was at their age and at their point of development, so no competition. But it's one of the great joys of my life that they're both writers, and to read their work is such a thrill. We did kind of a cool thing, I think it was 2 summers ago, where we both together read a book on translation and set about to translate the same poem together and kind of compare notes on the poem that we were translating as we worked, and that was so much fun. I loved it.
It was Deer Park
by Wang Wei.
By Wang Wei.
Yeah, it's a
old Chinese
a very
poem.
famous ancient Chinese poem, and part of what's famous about it is it's been translated so many times into English, and nobody who's translated it feels they've quite gotten it right. So we although neither of us speaks Chinese, we read lots and lots of translations and talked about them and tried to come up with our own translations.
It's hard.
I've actually included that poem in an Asian literature course I taught over at Nevada State College, so that's super cool. I'm really excited about this. That's
well,
amazing.
I don't think we got it perfect either, but we tried.
Mine was more for fun than it was an attempt to do the poem, serious justice. Because again, I don't speak any Chinese at all.
I love that though. Sometimes poetry really should be fun, right?
Yeah, no, always.
And for what it's worth too, I also, your father's also a resource to me in terms of poetry. I will send him work, especially things like Sonnet. So I'm there with you. I'm grateful for assignment as well. So, okay, I'm really thrilled. I would love to hear some of your poetry. Would you be willing to read for us?
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. All right.
Go for it.
Take it away.
Oh, I'm going first? Okay.
Please.
Okay, this is a sonnet I wrote about Red Rock Canyon State Park. It's called 9 Miles Out at Red Rock Canyon. These hills, they bleed like lips that parch from thirst, Red dust collects in blood pools at the foot of skyscrapers that rose before the first foundations made by human hands took root. And ancient people once bled here as well, who in the sun-scorched mountains found at last some water for the harsher season's hell to ease the great eternal solar blast. They painted on these stones to mark the site the ancient signpost of a bygone day. In red their hands, an elk and man in white. We have this still, but names we cannot say. And now they're gone, gone unto dust and bone, and now these stones bleed their dry blood alone.
Wow.
That's the poem.
That was fabulous. Your attention to sound, those images. I'm blown
Thanks.
away. That was amazing.
That's my kid.
Yay.
Good boy.
I'm so proud even for
Yeah.
you. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you.
That was fantastic. And Simon, would you read a poem for us?
Sure, yeah, I got a desert sonnet also.
Perfect.
So this one is called Outpass Randsburg. Mojave heat bends lines, blurs facts. Its light seems neither particle nor wave, but sheet of blinding clarity. There is no feat in seeing miles. Here nothing ruptures sight. A body's motion tends to end in shade as rest undoes the urge to drink and feed. But sun-baked suicide, the tumbleweed, dies, scatters seeds, then runs until decayed. Existence needs less water than we thought. The fairy shrimp waits 20 years for rain enough to hatch old eggs, all that remain of desert lives ringed by dryness, hard bought like ours. Though we're more lonely, less alone, our essence less of salt and more of bone.
It's gorgeous.
Thank
Actually,
you.
a little speechless. Thank you so much, Simon, for being here. Thank you so much, CJ, for being here. And thank you so much to all of you at home for joining us for poetry. It's an honor. It's a pleasure. I hope you're doing some reading and maybe even writing at home as well. Take care.